The Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency was established in 1949, then known as the Game and Fish Commission. For over 65 years, we've been on mission to preserve, conserve, manage, protect, and enhance the fish and wildlife of Tennessee. With support of hunters and anglers, we've come a long way since 1949, and now your TWRA is working even harder to enhance your outdoor experiences. A great way to keep up with what's going on is to visit our website at tnwildlife.org or follow us on Facebook at Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, on Twitter at TN Wildlife, on Instagram at TN Wildlife Resources Agency. An even better way is to stay right here for an episode of Tennessee WildCast. Join Jason and Doug as they discuss everything outdoors, from the Mississippi River to the Great Smoky Mountains. So now it's time for Tennessee WildCast, live from Studio B at the TWRA headquarters in Nashville. Here are your hosts, Doug and Jason.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee WildCast.
I'm Doug Marble.
And I'm Jason Harmon. We thank y'all for joining us today. We are Facebook Live, and we are back in action. It's been a while.
We are. Welcome back from China.
Yeah, I was out in China for a little while.
What's it like in China?
It's different. We'll
Big?
say that. It's big. There's a lot of people.
Saw the Great Wall?
Saw the Great Wall. Saw Tiananmen Square. And a lot of people.
And brought back?
And brought back our daughter. We adopted from China. That's why I was out there.
Congratulations.
Thank
Awesome.
you. And it's been a great 3-4 weeks with her right now. And
What's her name?
We're learning to get to know her. Riley May.
Riley May joins Tucker.
Yep, Tucker,
Right.
Riley May, and Miss Amy. So
Well, congratulations to
that's
all
the
of
four of us.
you. Yeah. Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
They
Thank
got
you.
good fishing in China?
They had some live fish at the Walmart market. Yeah.
They have any deer
They had
over there?
everything at the Walmart market in
Did they?
China.
Okay.
Fresh meats all around.
And gone. Well, listen, we got a good show today. I know people are excited because this Saturday, it is this Saturday, right?
That's right.
Start the deer season.
Yeah.
This Saturday. Chuck Yoest is our guest today. I know a lot of you excited to see Chuck on the show. Chuck is the Assistant Chief of Wildlife and Forestry.
That's
You
correct.
got forestry in there, right?
That's right.
All right.
Yes,
Chuck,
sir.
Chuck's going to be talking to you about, we're going to be asking him questions about the deer season
Mm-hmm.
and about CWD and EHD and all that fun stuff. We have a great state for deer, and that's the message that we're trying to put. We want a positive message out there, Chuck, but we want to warn everybody, not just hunters, but everybody who will listen to us about chronic wasting disease, and we're going to get to that in a few minutes, okay? We don't have it. We don't want it. We want to keep Tennessee CWD free,
Right on.
and we're going to be working toward that.
Trying to
okay?
brand that slogan. Keep Tennessee CWD free.
And we do. We need help of everybody out there to help us to keep it free, and it's closing in on us. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So, but anyway, the season starts this weekend, Saturday. It's
Yep.
archery season, archery only season.
Right.
And you archery hunters have a long way to go. Chuck, we got a bunch of archery hunters.
Well, yeah, certainly we do. It's one of our more popular types of deer hunting for sure.
Okay, it gives them a long time to get out there.
Yeah,
And-
it certainly
and
does. And they get the first shot at it. So
Very
literally.
first shot. And I got a question I'm asking in a few minutes on this list of questions I got for
Yeah,
Chuck.
we're going to be here a while.
Because I want to know why we have certain seasons set where we do and all that stuff, and get you to answer all that. But anyway, the season starts 23rd. Make sure you have all your licenses. Make sure you got your big game licenses, your big game archery, or your muzzleloader, or a gun, or whatever you're going to do, or unless you have a lifetime or an annual sportsman's license, and you're A-OK, right?
That's right.
All right.
Of
And
course, there's the landowner provision as well.
the landowner provision, which is in that guide. I get a lot of questions on Facebook, and a lot of that information's right in the guide. And usually when it's right in the guide, I write back and say, look in our guide.
Yeah.
Because we've worked hard to put all that information in that guide.
And where
So
can you
it's
get
okay.
all that information, Doug?
tnwildlife.org.
That's right, tnwildlife.org, and you can find out where to buy your license, how to buy your license, which ones to buy, and all that good stuff.
We've been working hard. Jason and I have been, along with our web administrator. Let's give her a little shout out,
Yeah,
Michelle Ray.
Michelle, yes.
And to make the website easier for you to navigate. And if you go on our website, you'll see guides right at the top, right at the very top. Click on that, and you'll see all 4 of our guides out there.
Yep.
So every guide that we've got is there and easy to find, and that does include the fishing guide.
Trying to make
the fishing guide and the boating
Right.
ID book.
Make it easy for you.
Yeah, our
right there.
boating book. Yeah. All right. Okay. You got any questions before we go? Or anything?
Not really any questions. Are we going to hit deer seasons first?
Yeah.
All right.
We are. Well, we got a lot of questions, and my first one to Chuck is, Chuck, it's with the season coming on, what's it looking like?
Well, there's no reason to doubt that it's going to be great. The only negative thing I would share is that I'm holding James Kelly, our deer program leader, personally responsible for the 80 degrees that we're predicted to have on Saturday. So it's supposed to be 85 degrees, and I'm even doubting whether or not I'll go on Saturday because of that. But other than that, there's no reason to think that it won't be great.
Okay. All right. Well, we've had some pretty cool weather. Some of the duck hunters, early season duck hunters, had some nice mild days to get up and go wood duck hunting and goose hunting and all that. But it is going to warm back up. It's September, and it's Tennessee. But still, as we said, there's a long way to go. We had a harvest last year of close to 160,000, I think, Chuck, give or take.
Correct.
Are we pretty much on par where we've been for years in Tennessee?
Yeah, we are. And thinking more specifically about this upcoming archery season, we've had some timely rains in the late summer and now early fall, and the food plots, if people manage those, should be in a lot better shape than last year, and it should be good.
All right. Well, population-wise in Tennessee, about how many deer statewide? Is that more of a James Kelly question?
It is. It's hard to tie me down on that number. But since we're here live, I'll throw out 750,000.
That sounds like a good number.
Deer population estimation.
I think that's about. I was just testing you. I think that's what James said last year. All right. Okay. Any big changes this year? We got any more? Are there any restrictions on antler sizes, lengths? Is there any bag limit changes? Anything new in 2017-18?
It's really no different than the previous year. There's no significant changes. It's kind of strange replying that way because it kind of seems like, well, why wasn't there anything? Well, there wasn't anything because there didn't seem to need to be any changes. So we're carrying on from how we were the previous year.
And we want to see how that two buck limit's working, right?
That's right.
And the antler restrictions and all that.
Well, all indications is that, you don't have to look far to see how good or how successful hunters are being. And last year was certainly a good example of that. If you were able to see pictures from hunters, and then we had the Tucker buck experience. So, man, it's outstanding.
Well, that is a question. Was last year unusual? Is it an indicator of where we are? We had a lot of big deer taken in Tennessee last year. A lot of photographs showing up. The world record buck with the Tucker buck here in Middle Tennessee. Stephen Tucker's 40, I think it's 47 points, and not a massive rack as in big, but beautiful as in lots of points. But we saw some massive racks. Is that unusual, or were we just seeing a lot of photographs last year? Are we becoming a bigger buck state?
Well, I would say that, it was definitely unusual in the sense of the Tucker buck. That's probably once in a lifetime event for us staff members. But beyond that, it was a great year, and each year we, at least in the last 5, it's been outstanding. So I don't expect anything less. We just have great deer hunting, and the pictures prove it. So.
Yeah, for sure. We do have great deer hunting, I think, in Tennessee, and we still have your choice. There's a lot of, if you look in our guide, you'll see the areas of the state or the zones of the state, and we still manage based on, I guess, where their population, Chuck, is, where there's more deer and less deer. But regardless of where you go, there's plenty of opportunities from east to west Tennessee and everything in between to harvest deer. Two statewide limit on buck.
That's right.
Then some bonus bucks on certain WMAs, and then you got antlerless hunts, or a lot of doe, but antlerless hunts, we call it, that are just everywhere.
Yeah, plenty of opportunities to harvest whatever type of deer you prefer, for sure.
And let's remind them, Chuck, when we talk about an antlerless animal now, what are we talking about?
Well, an antlerless animal could be a 6-month-old deer. It could, a fawn, or it could just be simply a mature doe.
Okay, and now, but if the antlers break the hairline.
If there's antler protruding above the hairline, whether it's a male or female, it's considered an antler deer, and that's where you have a limit of 2 for the year.
Okay.
And this is a good example. In the hunting guide, it lays it all out right there and shows you what is and isn't an antlered or antlerless deer. So check your hunting guide.
Yeah, make sure you have that guide and go online to look if you don't have it. Chuck, let's talk about EHD, and then we're going to get into CWD in a few minutes. Deer are out there. They're subject to diseases like any other critter. People are subject to them, to illnesses. We've had an outbreak of something called EHD or HD, hemorrhagic disease. Mm-hmm. What is that, and where are we seeing it most in Tennessee, and has it gotten to that point yet where we're just really concerned?
Well, it's a normal occurrence in Tennessee. We expect to hear of cases every year. It's just really sporadic. And the severity depends on the year and based on local conditions. But it's a viral disease. It's passed by midges, and it passes from animal to animal. And midges, you might hear them referred to as gnats or no-see-ums, or there's some other things that folks refer to them as. But anyway, essentially they hop from deer to deer and can pass this viral disease. And it may or may not result in death of the animal. It depends. Depends on whether or not the animal has the antibodies or not, and the severity of the symptoms can vary. It's one of the most significant diseases for deer. However, we kind of just expect it and plan for it annually, and there's not anything we can do about it other than monitor it.
Okay. All right. There was an outbreak in 2007 where deer died all over this state. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a big outbreak. They recovered. They came back, and they're doing fine now. The outbreak that I'm hearing mostly, Chuck, unless you can correct me here, is most of it's in the eastern part of the state, not so much in middle and west. Is that correct still?
Yeah, barely any cases in West Tennessee, some in middle. But, yeah, you get to the east, you have more. But it's about over. It'll be over in October.
First frost over there?
First frost, it kills the bug. Probably done. So.
Okay. All right. So, but nothing alarming, nothing coming close to 2007, I'm taking it.
No, I don't. I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. Well, and of course, we'd keep you informed if it was getting like that. Got to talk about chronic wasting disease. We're making an all-out effort on chronic wasting disease. Different from hemorrhagic disease.
EHD, yeah.
EHD. And, when EHD goes around, we don't have to worry about talking about EHD for a while. But right now we do, because even on Facebook, you can tell when we're talking, folks are coming there and they're thinking that that CWD is EHD because they're seeing dead deer. There's some confusion going on there, I think, but very different. They're different. One is bad, the other is terrible. Mm-hmm. What is chronic wasting disease, and do we have it in Tennessee?
Now, Doug, as you know, this is a really big subject, so keep fishing if you don't get exactly what you need out of it.
Well, I'm good at trying to fish, so there you go.
Trying to fish. Got that right, yeah.
The symptoms of chronic wasting disease are very similar to EHD, so I can understand why people would get those confused. Some differences between the two: chronic wasting disease is always fatal. Once we get it, it's going to be a nightmare for deer managers and for the wildlife agency. It's a deer hunter and deer manager's worst nightmare to have it in their local area. It would long term would have high population impacts, more so than EHD would. It's going to require drastic regulation changes, which are generally not popular with hunters. So they're just done out of necessity to contain the disease. But the disease itself is always fatal, and it's caused by the misfolding of a protein. So it's not viral like EHD, and it's not bacterial either. There's a lot of unknowns, and that's one of the scariest things about chronic wasting disease. A lot of unknowns, but we do know it's caused by misfolded protein that ultimately ends up in holes in the brain. So the animal's gonna pass. It's not going to survive, and the intensity of the disease or the prevalence of the disease grows over time. And what else would you like to know?
Well, yeah, how is it? It's in 24 states. Right. We've got information out on Facebook about it and our website where you can go into more detail and
some in Canada.
Learn about it. It's got 2 provinces in Canada, 24 states out of the continental or contiguous United States. It looks like it's closing in on us. It looks like it's going to try to wrap around us. Can we stop it from coming to Tennessee ultimately? Are we going to be able to stop this thing?
Well, we can't afford to not try to stop it.
Right.
It's I don't have a crystal ball, but what I do have is serious concern, and we've got to do what we can to keep it out of our state, because it will change deer management overnight. It'll change how the agency is focused. It'll just change everything about deer management. So we want to prevent that if we can.
There's that psychological thing too, or mental thing. If you think you have, if I were a deer hunter and I knew I had CWD anywhere near me, even though it's not known yet, we don't know that it spreads to people. It doesn't seem to, or livestock. There's still got to be that thing in your head thinking, am I going to be the one? Wrong on that, or do you think there's a psychological thing that could happen if we got it? And
well, I mean, you just have to look at states that have it. States that have it have seen a decline in hunters in those areas where it exists, and then they've seen an increase in people testing their deer before they consume them. And there's questions, there's research that's going through. I'm not sure what the right wording is, but anyway, there's some preliminary research results out there that repose the question: can it impact humans? So far, we haven't seen a case of chronic wasting disease in humans, which is great news. But there's huge concern about that. So, we've got to do what we can to keep it out of our state, and the agency is actively working to do that. But it's going to take a partnership between hunters and the agency to be successful.
And we're help us if you're seeing this. Help us. And I think we talk about hunters and how it impacts them in the herds, not just deer. Elk, our small elk herd would be jeopardized depending on where it came. But wildlife watchers, people love watching deer, and same thing with them. If it gets into an area, the agency would have to take action, and that action would possibly mean having to go in and kill some deer in some areas? Do we know that?
Well, yeah, I think it's safe to assume that if it's found in an area, that we're going to have to increase our sampling in that area. Now, ideally, you would do that through hunter harvest. So, that's what we'll try to do initially, and hopefully we'll get enough samples that way. If not, then agency staff would have to partner with landowners, whether it be governments or if it's private landowners, to work towards increasing that sampling to really get a feel for the prevalence rate.
Okay. All right. That's if we get it. We don't want to get it. So what's the best method of telling everyone how not to get it? What's the message?
Well, I guess primarily it's helping people understand the threat and generally speaking how the disease works. And we should probably go back to some of that.
We will.
But one of the most notable things is we have a lot of hunters that travel out of state to hunt deer, elk, moose, and caribou, and they want to bring these animals back. Well, if they go to states that have had chronic wasting disease, then they're going to be required to follow certain restrictions to bring them back into Tennessee, and these restrictions are in place to keep the diseased or potentially diseased parts of the animal back where they came from, as opposed to entering them into Tennessee.
Okay. All right. There are 5 or 6 things, and they're all listed on the website we've talked about. We're going to do a video, too, with a taxidermist, Chris Budd, here in Tennessee, and showing folks what clean teeth look like, what a clean skull looks like. Mm-hmm. We're going to do all this as a part of our effort to let everybody know. Mm-hmm. But the main thing is if you go there and you come back, make sure it's done right. I know we had some deer brought back in from other states last year that weren't done properly. And where we caught them, we had to confiscate the deer to test them. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a threat. It's a threat to entering the disease into our state, and not only that, but it's evidence for a case, a prosecution through the court system. So that those animals, the state would take custody of those animals, and then we have to keep those animals and wait on whatever the judge orders regarding them. Okay. And we'll be talking to the courts about disposing of those animals in such a way that's sanitary to prevent disease spread. Okay. Did we have any animals that we know of right now that were brought back with chronic wasting disease to the state? We have not. Okay. That would have made the headlines. And there was somebody commenting, yeah, I guess it would have.
there was somebody commenting on Facebook talking about, well, I already hunt on the line. I go across. It's reported it last year, Arkansas, both neighbors. And they said, well, I'm going across the line. These deer don't know where the line is. They're coming back and forth. But one thing I want to point out is that Arkansas and Virginia, they have found them, but they're still 100 miles away or plus. Is that correct from our state line?
Yeah, I'd say that's a good approximation. But, it's pretty blunt, but it's pretty black and white. You have positive states and non-positive states, and the ones that are positive, you got to follow those restrictions before you bring them into Tennessee.
Period.
Yeah.
We don't care if you go into the state, and we're just doing the best we can here to keep CWD away from us, because, like you said, once you got it forever. Or at least it seems that way right now.
Yeah, and if you find it, you're going to look back and think, boy, I'm glad we did all we could to prevent it. Mm-hmm. You're not going to regret any action that you took to keep it out of the state.
No.
Okay. But do your homework if you go out of state before you go. There's going to be taxidermists local, or if you want to do it yourself. Most of the time there are. There are some places where you're not going to have a taxidermist nearby, and you might need to do the things that are required of you. And that's why we're making that video, to let folks see kind of what they can do. And then we're going to make even a longer one later when we have time that goes through the full process. We're going to do everything we can to help you understand what you got to do if you go out of state. There's something called CERVID, and it takes some time to put it in press releases or talk about it, but CERVID is that just the overall family name for deer? What does that mean?
Yeah, just very simply, it's the deer family.
The deer family. So when you're talking about anything like a moose or an elk or a white-tailed deer, it's a CERVID.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
What do they look like when they get sick? What are the symptoms?
Well, I may oversimplify things, but if you just focus on the name of the disease, chronic wasting disease, they basically look like they're wasting away. So emaciation is the way I describe it. They'll have other symptoms like a fever, depression, and other things, but those aren't things that are as observable as just a weak-looking, bony animal.
Okay. Again, because we're in the EHD time of the year, that's also what they sort of look like when they have EHD. Mm-hmm. So that's where it's a little confusing right now until this bug gets by. But we still want to know. I mean, we wanting people to report to us if they think they're seeing either deer, EHD or CWD.
Yeah, we'd appreciate those reports for sure, because that gives us a sampling opportunity, for both types of diseases.
Can you see anything?
Yeah, we got a few questions coming in, but we'll have to get back to those later. They're kind of off topic, and we'll try to get those folks those answers.
Okay.
But right now, we've got a few questions coming in, not many.
Okay.
But thanks for watching. We've got quite a few people out there watching right now.
Well, good. All right, Chuck. One other thing that I definitely want to point out, we're trying to tell folks about how not to bring it in here, but if it should happen, there is a plan in place to deal with it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What is that plan, or what's, in a nutshell, what does that mean?
Well, I would describe it as a response plan, where our response is going to be to make the proper notifications to the public and to government leaders. So we make those notifications, and then we go to the local area, and then we go to work on sampling and determining just how prevalent it is. And then we have to think about what regulatory changes have to happen to contain the disease.
Okay.
For example, you would expect for the bag limits in those counties to be increased to try to encourage more harvest, because you want to bring that you want to bring the prevalence rate down, and you're going to have to do that by dropping the deer harvest.
Okay. All right. Blue tongue. I've seen that on Facebook quite a few times. Is this blue tongue?
Well, now we're talking about hemorrhagic disease again.
Correct.
Yeah,
I'm confusing myself. Stay on CWD for a minute. All right. CWD, we'll go back to blue tongue in a minute. It's just in my mind because I'm looking at Facebook. On the CWD, the plan's in place, and it's available on our website. Is that correct, if they want to go look at it?
It is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Right now it's on the homepage.
Yeah, if you look on the homepage, you'll see, because we're trying to put it out there preeminently. Is that something that gets updated from time to time, or is it in place and set in stone? And do we work with other state agencies to get ideas from them?
I'd say that the overall response plan is set in stone. where things could vary is we commonly refer to it as operational plan, which is more detailed. It's hard to predict those details right now until you know exactly where the disease is found. So those are some details that'll have to be ironed out quickly once we go live. So that's where some things can vary. But yeah, absolutely, we're learning from other states' experiences, not only on response but also on prevention.
One thing that I'm glad to see about some of the other states that have it, maybe it's like they're trying to help educate others so that we don't get it. And I really appreciate the agencies are doing it as they work to contain it within their own state, because that's what you want to do, right? If you get it in that county, you want to keep it in that county until you kill it as much as you can. I really appreciate that they're doing that. There's also a site that's CWD Alliance that tells you all about it across the country. Is that a site that a good source to send them to?
Yeah, the CWDalliance.org is a good website. USDA has some good content out there. Yeah, that's the thing. I tend to live in my Tennessee bubble and forget, but there's federal responses to this. It's a federal initiative, and there's just gobs of information out there. Now, some of it's bad, so check your sources. But those are
some
two
of it's
good
bad,
ones.
not always great information.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, all right, yeah, always, and you can always talk to us through Facebook, and we can help you out through some of that. You got something?
Yeah, here's a question that came in. It says if you kill a deer that has CWD, which we don't have CWD right now in the state, but if you kill one that has CWD, does that count towards your buck limit? That's what folks, this one guy's asking, does it count towards your limit? Right now, it's going to count towards your limit, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, whether or not an animal is diseased doesn't determine whether it counts against your bag limit.
Yeah,
right.
I had that question by a young lady last night, asked me online on Facebook that, and I thought, my answer was almost a nice try, but she was coming from out of state, and she was serious. Did it count toward her bag limit? First of all, we don't have it, and just because you see a skinny deer, don't mean you can shoot it and not count it. So we want you to tell us it's going on.
Unless it's a bonus buck, right?
Unless it's a bonus buck. You have to check that guide out.
Yeah, check your guide. Watch your limits and watch your special regulations on the WMAs and stuff.
Okay, Chuck, before we move on from CWD, I want to get back to the blue tongue in a second. I'm about to mess up there, but anything else on CWD?
Not that comes to mind. I'm sure there's more. We'll probably circle back.
I've got one. Don't be that guy, right?
Don't be that guy.
Or that girl. Or that sportsman. Don't be that sportsman.
Be that person that brings back CWD to Tennessee, because there is that one other thing. As much fun as they are to hunt, as much fun as they are to photograph, they bring in deer to Tennessee brings in millions and millions of dollars. And through history, maybe even $1 billion or two, who knows, over that time. But we're looking at, 60, 80 years of restoration work and management work, restoration to begin with, bringing them back, management since then to keep them stable as possible. And all this could change overnight. Yeah,
the University of Tennessee's estimated an immediate $46 million economic impact.
That's a punch.
Yeah, for that, and that's not even to mention the frustrations with the disposal requirements that would come with CWD, and then the change in hunting regulations and
the focus that our agency would have to have people like you spending all your time on that.
Yeah, that
James Kelly. That's all he'd be doing.
Yeah, it'd be a great big deal. I should also point out that the agency does annual sampling already.
Thank you. I'm glad you did that.
Yeah, yep. to try to detect the disease if it's here.
I've been doing it for a while. I can remember working a checking station myself, probably 10 or 12 years ago, where we actually had to take off their heads and took them all, and we all gathered and tried to find that. I forget what it was called. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm glad you hit that, because another question just came in. This guy wants to know if there's a test. Is there a test out there that the public can buy to test these deer to see if their deer might have CWD? But also, I want you to elaborate on how you sample those deer, how we sample and test them.
Yeah, so I think to date we're approaching the 10,000 mark on sampling for chronic wasting disease, and
that's a lot of deer.
We're gonna continue that. That involves elk too as well.
Okay.
So obviously we'll keep doing that. We do that through these days just extracting a lymph node from the animal, and then we submit that to a lab. It's out of state actually. So that's how we do it. Other states that are positive for chronic wasting disease, they have more avenues for sampling than we currently do. As far as I know, we're the only ones doing any CWD sampling, except for some cases on big game preserves. But there's designated labs where you can send those to. So that is currently an option for hunters. I don't know that anybody's doing that yet, but they'd have to, not only would it require establishing a relationship with a lab, but it would also require some training on how to find those lymph nodes and how to package them accordingly and get them submitted and them be in good shape for the lab.
It'd probably be expensive for an individual to do, would it not?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have some costs associated with it. Those labs have a lot of overhead, and it's going to require shipping, et cetera. But it's hard to say what it would cost. I mean, it could cost, I don't know, somewhere between $50 and $100 if I had to guess. But again, I'm just spitballing.
Okay, all right. We'd rather let you professionals handle all that kind of stuff and send that on out there. So. All right, Chuck. Also on CWD, we want taxidermists to help us. We want processors to help us. We want hunters to help us. We want the individuals to help us. Are there any other groups I'm missing there that deal with deer all the time? Especially, when we include everyone, we know everybody or most everybody loves to look at deer. So we want your help too. But the hunter deals with deer all the time. During the hunting season anyway, the processor does and the taxidermist does. Am I missing anybody?
That handles them all the time? Maybe. Yeah, I'm sure there's somebody we're missing. I mean, I think about state troopers who do accident reports. I think about TDOT employees that, they're responsible for picking up roadkill in some cases. There's other groups out there that could lend a hand.
Give us a hand. Okay. Is there anything else on there before I move on? All right, let's get back to EHD for a minute. I kind of messed up there a while ago, but blue tongue, what is blue tongue, and is it the same as EHD, which is this biting bug that's creating this virus?
Okay, so EHD and blue tongue are both hemorrhagic disease.
Okay.
They're just two variations of the same disease, so they're different viral. They're just two different viruses. Same symptoms, same results. It's really the same thing. Same inability to control it or really do anything about it. So I just encourage people to view them as one and the same.
Okay. All right.
From a deer perspective.
From a deer perspective. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. You got anything else?
There was one question that we were throwing around the other day, and I don't know if Chuck had a chance to find out the answer to that, but, if CWD showed up in our state and then the mom, the doe, had a fawn, would that fawn have the CWD virus in it, or does that pass from year to year through birth?
So I'm not a disease expert. My wife is a whole lot educated on these things than I am. She's a veterinarian. She's a veterinarian.
Yep.
So I asked her this question, and with absolute confidence, she said probably.
Mm-hmm.
It
makes sense.
And it does make sense, because if this is something that we failed to touch on, and something I'm glad we went back to this, but the disease agent from chronic wasting disease can be passed from animal to animal through body fluids. It can also be passed from the environment to the animal. So this is another reason why it's so dangerous, because it gets in the environment and it's just there. You can't go back to CWD free. And so when it comes to if you think about it from a body fluid perspective, and you think about the development of a fawn or a fetus in a whitetail doe, then how could all that happen and it not be diseased when it's born? And even if it somehow evaded the disease, then it's going to start nursing, which is is a body fluid, and it's just bound to happen if it hadn't already. And Jennifer agreed with me totally on that.
It would probably be, again, getting in her business, it would probably be a short lifespan for that that fawn, though, right? I wouldn't.
Yeah. So another few things to know about chronic wasting disease is that an animal could have it for quite some time before it starts showing signs of the disease. And in areas where it's very prevalent, like in some cases in Wisconsin, some areas in Wisconsin, the animals only live long enough to replace themselves before they pass to the disease. So what you end up with is you end up with a much younger age structure of deer, and most of them will succumb to the disease, once they get past that early maturity. So you're looking probably by 2.5, they could be dying to disease. So they've just lived long enough to reproduce.
Okay. We don't want it here. We're going to run out of time here in a minute. We want to go ahead and tell everybody to remember to look on page 22 of the hunting guide, whether you look at it on our website through the digital process, or you get a hard copy, which is available at stores all over the place. There's the seasons right there. Archery season coming up. You got a long season. Young sportsmen will follow that at the end of October. Then you got your muzzleloader hunt, which, Chuck, that's we'll sort of wrap it up with this question I'm coming up with here in a second. And then you have got the muzzleloader, and then you have the gun muzzleloader archery, and then another juvenile hunt. Why do the hunts fall like they do? Why do the archers go first, followed by obviously juvenile, but then you have the muzzleloader and the gun? Is there a reason for that? And if you only had one of those seasons that you could hunt, which one would it be?
I like the second half of that question for sure. I would describe the reason why they're laid out like they are is just based on the Tennessee hunting culture. It may not have been what you thought you'd hear from me, but you probably thought more of a biological reasoning.
Yep.
But if you look at any state you look at, you'll see that there's a really strong and sometimes unique hunting culture that people are that's just the way they do it, and they're proud of that. So there's some of that built into this. Some more of the rationale is that, archery is more difficult. The success of archery hunters is going to be lower than muzzleloader or gun hunters. So there's this progression through our seasons of the most difficult method of hunting to what you might say is the easiest or the least difficult. So you start with archery, this is most difficult, then you go to muzzleloader, which is a little, it's still tough.
More primitive, your equipment.
It's easier than bow hunting, but it's tougher than gun hunting. And then you go to gun, which is the least difficult. So I would say that's probably the second strongest reasoning why. Now my favorite, and I get a little torn about this.
We were just talking about this the other day.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the method is for me, bow, gun, or archery. I love them all. But because December 15th is during gun season, that's my favorite. That's if you wanna target the rut, you can pretty much say December 15th is the time that week when things are on average the best.
Okay.
If you're looking to hunt the rut and you're interested in mature bucks, and I'm there.
Would some people argue with you and say it's November 15th or November?
Oh yeah. It's something fun to debate. People love doing it. Now there's another unique opportunity in the season, which is this weekend, is hunting those deer that they aren't spooked, they haven't been pressured, they're still in their summer feeding patterns, and you can pattern them easier. And some people have killed some of their most mature deer during that time of year, and I like that angle too. So I'm kind of torn on what's my favorite. But if I had to pick one, it would be around that December 15th week.
Okay. And I want to remind, without looking, that if you're an archery only hunter, if you look in our guide, you'll find what counties have some turkey hunting available in it, and you can, if it's a designated county, you can also take a turkey
That's right.
During this hunt.
One turkey.
Which is a nice little bonus to have out there, too. So make sure you check the guide and see where it is. You got anything else?
I think we're about ready to wrap it up. What do you think?
I think we are.
It was a good show.
Chuck, you did great.
Thanks for being with us,
We'll
Chuck.
get you back. We got a long deer season to go, and once you get back in here and get James Kelly in here, can you like say, hey James, you need to come down here and be on the
I
program.
can do that.
Okay,
He's
we're
got
gonna
some
work
pull.
on that.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do
That's
with
a
Mr.
pretty
Kelly.
easy thing for me to do.
I think James wants to come on. We need to get him on here. He's our statewide deer biologist, Chuck Yoest, assistant chief of Wildlife and Forestry. Well, you know about trees. That's another subject.
More than you think.
I bet you do. I bet you do. All right, everybody. We appreciate you watching. We'll be back. We want to get more questions from you. Somehow we got to figure out how to give them a notice that we're going to be doing this.
I enjoyed this being live on Facebook and getting a few questions in. That was great. And we'll try to go back and answer those that didn't get answered and follow up here after the show.
Okay. All right. We'll be back. I don't know what we'll talk about next week, but we'll be
Yeah.
back. We're going to have something good. The deer season's here. All the seasons are opening soon, one after the other after the other.
Maybe we'll have some big pictures of big deer being killed first week of the season.
Yeah.
Maybe.
All right.
Hopefully one for me.
Maybe a few fish
I think
content.
Chuck's got a few island out there on his farm.
Get
I
to-
can't say.
We'll show it. All right, everybody. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
We'll see
thank
y'all
y'all.
soon.